Again, have to remind you, very soon we'll be taking to a podium where we will have President Trump and Emmanuel Macron holding that joint press conference, okay? I want to bring in Art Laffer, former Reagan economic advisor. All right, Art, big picture now. We've had lots of developments this morning on the China trade deal talks, all the rest of it. Is it okay to be optimistic at this point from what we've heard about China trade talks? Are you optimistic?
Yes, I am optimistic. I believe very much in the president. I believe he's a great negotiator, and he does all of these things all the time, which keep me off guard, off balance, etc. But bottom line, I think he's going to get a good trade deal with China. I think we're going to have a great trade deal with Japan, and I think what he's doing in this trade stuff, while it confuses me, baffles me, and just terrifies me, I think he's going to do a good job, and we're going to get something coming out of it that's really good for the country and good for China, too.
Now, here's the take that I've been delivering all morning, which is President Trump is arranging one-on-one trade deals. Japan, Germany, Britain, and that seems to be lining up people to go against China, the rogue trading state. Is that what he's doing, lining up allies?
I hope not, because I don't like to think of China as a rogue trading state. Now, China has lots of problems in its trading structure. That's very true, Stuart. But the things that the president is proposing and what they agreed to before and then China reneged on would help China as much as it would the U.S. Free trade is good for everyone, not just for one party or the other. It's not a I win, you lose, or you win and I lose. It's a win-win or a lose-lose, and the United States has huge amounts to gain from free trade with China, and so does China have huge amounts to gain from free trade with the U.S. It's a perfect match, made in heaven, if only we had free trade with each other. And Trump has always been for freer trade, my view of the world, and I think he's going to get a great deal with China, and I think China will thank him immensely for what he's done.
Here's something that I'm sure will make you happy. The Hill is reporting that Chinese and American negotiators, I'll take that back, that French and American negotiators have agreed on some form of compromise on this French tech tax. It involves tech companies, American tech companies, getting some kind of refund if they overpaid, overtaxed. I don't want to get into the weeds on this, but I'm sure you'd be happy to hear it, Art.
I'm delighted. This is the type of stuff that Trump is great at. And, can you imagine any other president doing that, challenging the domestic authority of taxation in a country with that type of thing? Trump did it, got it back, and got it where it should be. That's what you want from a good president, a really good CEO of the United States. And he's doing these jobs great, although he does scare me all the time. But bottom line, it comes out pretty well in the end. I mean, the tax bill, all of this stuff,
what do you mean he scares you? What do you mean he scares you?
Oh, when I hear him say, we'll get them, we'll knock them, it scares me. Trade is not something that you want to be in a war about. Trade is good for everyone. And when he does the negotiations and all that stuff, I have no idea what his fallback position is or what he's going to ultimately end up with. And it scares me like everyone else. Yeah, and when those markets collapse by 622 points in one day, Stuart,
yes, but wait a second.
That's terrifying.
The president is piling on the pressure to Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader, he's got to look over his shoulder. He must be horrified at what he saw in Hong Kong over the weekend. Shots fired, police drew their guns with live ammunition, water cannon. It was a riot. Now, isn't that...
It was.
Isn't that putting pressure on Xi Jinping to be nice to Trump? I mean, he's got to settle Hong Kong somehow or other. Why not be nice to Trump in the meantime?
Well, you should be nice to Trump all the time, not just because you have pressure on you. Threatening someone often doesn't make it work out well. And, whenever you fight, both of you always lose. Now, you may lose less than the guy you beat up, but you still lose. There's no upside to fighting. In this thing, we need agreements there that get rid of all the inequities that are there that don't help China. China's stealing intellectual property is not good for China. It's not good for the U.S. It's not good for anyone. And they steal from each other, too, by the way, just so you know. It's not discriminatory against the U.S. They just steal. Well, stop it already. And you don't make these transfers. Do it right. right. Every Chinese person in the negotiation knows the U.S. position is right. They know that. They just worry about the political backlash in China, but they know it's good for China. It'll good for Chinese growth. We have been China's friend since the very beginning. I was the first American in modern times, Stuart, to go to China. I went in October 1970 with George Shultz and John Ehrlichman. And, you know, I was prepared to hate China, and I fell in love with China. China is our perfect partner going forward. It's just wonderful.
Well, wait a minute, Art, I didn't know that.
Your home country.
Wait. I didn't know that.
I mean, what a great thing of a free trade agreement with Britain would be, and get them out of the EU and get them back to economic growth and prosperity.
Okay, I did not know.
I'm pretty optimistic.
Hold on. I didn't know that you'd been in China in 1970, because at that time, virtually no Westerner went there. It was the end of Mao's Cultural Revolution, as I recall. What was China like back then?
Well, China was the poorest place on earth.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I went on Air Force Two with George Shultz and John Ehrlichman. I was the substance staffer. We had Todd Holland was our advance man, and we had Janet Haruska, who was the secretary there. But that was it. And we went there, and got all the briefings about China there, and I turned from being very hostile to China to being really pro-China. And, you know, I was in the first one. It was very exciting. I was the domestic head in the White House at that time for China. And China's a natural ally of ours. In the Boxer Rebellion, we were very much on China. I mean, all of this stuff. We have a great relationship with China, and it's a perfect match, and Trump is going to bring it to fruition. I think it's going to be the biggest boom for the U.S. and China imaginable, and I don't see any reason why China and the U.S. can't march arm in arm together to make for a better world rather than fight each other.
Okay,
fighting
let's
just
talk.
Doesn't pay off.
Let's talk the market.
We need to be partners. Huh?
Let's talk the market for a second, okay? Look,
yes, sure.
It seems to me that this question of the inverted yield curve, not that important at this moment. Talk of tax cuts way down the road, not that important at this moment. The ball of wax, the only game in town, this is my opinion, I want to hear what you've got to say. The only game in town for this stock market at this point is China trade. What do you say?
I think it's very much China trade. I wouldn't say the only game in town. I mean, Powell should lower the discount rate quite substantially. The 5-year yield is below the discount rate, or right even with it. That just makes no sense. For the last 10 years, the 5-year has been way above the discount rate. He needs to move that discount rate to keep a regular sloped yield curve. That's what needs to be done. But you're right. China's much more important than that. And Japan's a big deal too, Stuart. But again, China's much more important than Japan. But those two other ones are not small. And if we do a good deal with China and we get the discount rate down, if we get the deal with Japan, this place is off to the moon.
And the USMCA?
We could have the best 10-year future imaginable. I'm very excited about the U.S. prospects. We're the only country now doing well because of our tax bill. Remember how we talked about the tax bill here in this show? If it weren't for that tax bill, Stuart, we would be in the sinkhole just like Europe is, just like the rest of the world is. We're not because of that tax bill. Trump has done a great job on this economy.
I can't believe what's happening in Europe, actually. No. I mean, they're printing money like it's going out of style. Negative interest rates,
You have been
for
too
heaven's
long
sake.
away from Europe.
It's true.
You know, I lived in Germany as a kid. I went to school at the University of Munich. And, you know, Europeans have nothing but ways of creating destruction of good things.
You went to school in Germany?
This EU is such a mistake.
You went to school in Germany?
Mistake. I mean, I went to the University of Munich when I was a kid.
When you were a kid, what was that, the 50s or 60s?
Well, in 1920, 21, I went to the university there. In fact, I got the Hans Muller Award, which is the alumni award from the University of Munich, 7 years ago with the mayor of Munich. So it was, I loved the place. I loved it. But, you know, the Europeans don't look the way we do to the future. They don't smile and beam and love things.
No, they don't.
They look for the dark side. You know, Schadenfreude all the time and Alligatoren and, you know, this stuff is stuff for optimism.
Do you think
You're
they'll
optimistic
ever
like I am, Stuart?
Do you think they'll ever cut taxes in Germany?
When Ludwig Erhard is dead, unfortunately. Yeah. Ludwig Erhard did it. He was wonderful. If you ever saw what he did, it was amazing. If you saw the prosperity of Germany, I wrote a paper then, Was ist denn los? Which is, if you look at Germany, you look at government spending as a share of GDP rising and German growth rates stopped. I mean, they've destroyed all their future in Germany. They were the ones that developed the Wirtschaftswunder, if you remember. And they've destroyed it as well. They gave birth to it and then killed it. And it's really sad what the Germans have done to themselves and the rest of the EU. But the rest of the EU is no great shakes either.
This is true.
I mean,
this is true.
Britain's going to be great because you're getting out of it. And when you get out of it, you'll do a free trade deal with the U.S. and we'll be able to go forward. Now I only want to get Ireland to join us and get out of the EU and join us. And we could have the most wonderful place on earth.